Greetings, this is TimeRider at Chapter 4. I know that traditionally I've been doing 2 castings a week, but for those of you who followed my videos, you know that I just sold my house and moved to a new location. Well, I actually still own my old home, and so every time it snows here, I have to basically snowblow 2 driveways. The one here at my new home, then I have to drive about an hour, snowblow the old house, and then I have to drive back. And yesterday we got about 4 inches of snow, which I believe is about 12 centimeters for those of you folks in the metric world. And so far in the month of February, we got 39 inches of snow, which is roughly a meter. It seemed like it was snowing every other day. This photo I took, it isn't a very good one. I took this morning after I blew out my driveway at my old house, and you can see just how high the snow is packed on either side of the driveway. So there you go, I've been busy. So let's get on to more important things. What you're looking at here is a 3B 7.5 ton Bedford Tipper, produced by Matchbox from 1961 until 1967. One thing that I can tell you about this particular casting is it is as varied as any Matchbox casting. The cabs, which had no interior, ran from near white to a darker gray, and the tipper was red, dark red, or maroon, depending on what year it was produced. It came with 24 tread gray plastic wheels, a gray plastic wheel that has who knows how many treads, and a hard black plastic wheel, and it was never introduced into the superfast genre. One other thing to note is it was cast in 1/80th scale. Now this is mine, and I paid $2.86 for it. And you can see it has the gray plastic wheels, although it is not the 24 tread, which is the one that's really hard to find. I had kind of a medium gray cab, and the tipper and the tipper gate on the back were different colors because I kiped the actual tailgate off of another tipper that I sold in a lot of junk Matchbox. And you can see that the left rear gray tire is pretty hacked up. If you notice too, the tipper also sits at a little bit of an angle, so my suspicion is that the back of it is bent and it's going to need a little bit of straightening. So anyway, without any further ado, let's get on with it. The base was very small and held on with a single post, which I drilled out. It's interesting to note too that this was a very, very thin casting. So I didn't drill out the post once I removed the base. I decided that I was going to put the thing back together in a different way. Removal of the tailgate is actually pretty easy. You just manually spread the sides of the dump chassis a little bit and it pops right out. And I decided for this particular casting, I was just going to cut the hinge pin that holds the dump chassis onto the frame. So now we're ready for a little stripper. And I'm going to use the citrus stripper, which generally tends to work pretty good on the older Matchbox castings. Citrus stripper worked pretty good on the cab, but for some reason the red paint on the tipper body was hardly impacted by it. So I had to bring out the heavier guns. Some of the paint, particularly on the inside, had come off, but the outside was virtually untouched. So I put it into a bowl and just drenched the thing with aircraft stripper and let it sit for several hours before I even touched it again. I took this opportunity to clean up the base, which I painted with black rattle can paint, and the tailgate, which the paint had been largely removed. There was a little bit of stubborn residue, which the wire brush took care of quite handily. And I also did a little bit of work on the cab itself, which still had some remnants of paint, but it was all coming off pretty easily. Get it down to the bare metal so I can begin other work. Now that the paint is removed, is a good time to take a look at the chassis and see if I can figure out what the problems with it are. And as you can see on the back, it is in fact crooked, and it's going to need to be straightened. So I wrapped it in a paper towel and I took a needle nose, and I was actually kind of surprised because it twisted much easier than I thought it would. And what wound up happening is I wound up actually getting a bend in the middle of the cross brace, which was not what I wanted at all. I wanted it to stay straight and wanted the left side frame rail to just move upward and be even with the right side frame rail. And I actually wound up taking a hammer to it, which I hate doing, and I got my punch out and went to work on it that way, because now I'm in damage repair mode. I'm trying to straighten out what I screwed up. And I actually went off camera because I was trying to work with the camera in front of me, which was difficult. And I did wind up getting it as straight as I wanted it to be, just not while I was on camera. But you can see I'm working trying to straighten that last cross member out. The bath in aircraft stripper did work, but you can see that, boy, that paint was just really stubborn. It did not want to come off, but after working with it a bit, I was able to get the vast majority of it off, enough of it anyway that I could further clean the casting with, picks, toothpicks, wire brushes, etc., and got it to the point where I could paint it. And now a coat of Tamiya light gray for the cab and frame. Hey, you want to have some fun? Try grabbing onto some pieces that you need to paint the entire piece, which is what I had to do here. I wound up grabbing the tailgate by one of the little nubs coming off of the side. And then the bottom of the tipper bed, I grabbed one of the little, I guess you'd call it a frame that holds the pin that allows the tipper to tip. So I'm ready for paint here, and I didn't have any gray. So I took Tamiya X2 white and put in a couple of drops of X1 black. I got a little too far to the white, but as anybody who does this knows, if you go too far, and that black is a powerful thing, if you go too far, it's tough to get back. The tipper bed, I was shooting for the marooner colors rather than the red colors, so I used Tamiya X7 and again, X1 black. And really it did. It just takes a couple of drops and you get right where you want to go with it. I know there's a lot of guys out there, Marty is one of them, who don't use any clear coats over these paints. Now, I always do, and the reason that I do is because in my experience anyway, and maybe they have different experiences than I do, the acrylic paints are very fragile, and if you even bump them with anything, it seems like you get a flea bite or a nick or a scratch. So I put the clear coat on really to protect the finish of the acrylic paint. And I don't know, maybe I'm just doing something wrong, but my experience has been that the clear coat is a big help. And it also, of course, adds some luster. And I realize that the Tamiya paint, if you use enough coats, it can get pretty shiny. But I like the shine of the clear coat. So I put the wheels back on, and I used a hammer. I did that off camera. I don't generally like doing that, but I thought I had enough clearance and it worked out pretty well. And then it came time to assemble it. Now, last week I was watching Nick over at Matchbox Restorations, and he put a hole in his casting, and he wound up having to repair it using modeling putty and sandpapers and a whole bunch of other things. And I just got to thinking about it because this was so thin where the post was. I thought, I can either drill through and try to fix the other side with putty, or I could just put the thing back together with epoxy. And the putty option just seemed like a whole lot of work. And either way, I'm putting something sticky on it and making it more difficult to get it apart, I guess. This would drill out just like the original post did. You can actually see the coloring through the epoxy, so it's almost like a Matchbox Marty's color matched screw. And it seems like I did a very careful job, and it seems like it holds the model together just fine. Is it something I'm going to do on a regular basis? Probably not. But I'm not going to be afraid to do it that way if it makes sense to do it that way. And I guess that's the best explanation that I can give for why I did it the way I did it. So if we go back and look at where we started, we had the messed up rear wheel. Looked like a dog got a hold of that. The tipper bed that was a little bit crooked. You can see even from the front that it's crooked. Most of the paint was gone off of the cab. It had a mismatched tailgate. It was just not in very good condition. So why don't we take a look at where we wound up. So there you have it. The Matchbox 3B Bedford Tipper. I used the little pin kit that I bought on eBay to replace the tipper pin. The rest of it is just original axles. And of course the bed looks a little bit straighter now than it did when I started. This is TimeRider at Chapter 4. And I'll leave the light on for you. Subscribe if you will. Share if you must. I got other projects. I might even get some more out this weekend. Take care, everybody, and be safe.